What's up, everybody? This is a compilation of guys that are shooting on Ludvig Borga. I'm going to start this off with Bruce Pritchard.
Ludvig Borga was Tony Halme, a Finnish wrestler from Finland. And he was a miserable prick, but he was one of those guys that still in the days of people saying, oh, I know it's a work, I know it's all entertainment. When he walked down the aisle, people were genuinely afraid of him. He had that aura about him, and he was a stone cold heel. Problem was his work was limited, and he was an asshole.
I'll just interject real quick. I was on an airplane with him back in 1995, and he was friendly to everybody.
You know, what did Vince see in him? Did he think he was going to be the next big star for real?
He was going to be our Ivan Drago. He was going to be the big, nasty foreign heel that was going to be the threat to Lex Luger. And by God, he was going to be the next big, nasty, real heel.
Ludvig Borga was horrible.
The next shoot interview clip I'm going to share is from Tatanka. If you guys remember, Tatanka had this big undefeated streak back in the day, and Ludvig Borga ended it. He pinned him with one finger. So Ludvig Borga was being pushed to the moon. Here's Tatanka.
Ludvig Borga, World Wrestling Federation, WWE at the time wanted to, they were really looking to push him as a big star. But a lot of times, you got big guys that come in from either playing football or being shoot fighters or being actors or whatever it may be, and they just don't make that switch, that change. And I know they wanted to do big things with him. He was part of defeating me.
I was going to ask you, do you think that he should have been the one?
Well, I know what they were doing there. Anytime they're going to do anything, first of all, I'd already went 2 years undefeated. Right. I wasn't sitting there going, well, God, I'm going to be there for 5 years undefeated. What I seen was this, just like anything. When we do things in the squared circle, the most perfect way to do things is not that you do things that it only benefits one person,
right? That
it benefits both people,
right?
That's how we always thought when I was at WWF, and also ever since I've wrestled outside of the squared circle, battle circle of World Wrestling Entertainment, I've thought the same thing. What can we both do in the ring that makes us both excel? So, I knew what they were doing there. They were wanting to push him. So here's a great way to push him. Let him beat Tatanka. Let him do a major screw job and defeat Tatanka by cheating.
Right.
Okay. Hitting him with a chair from behind, using other people, Fuji and Yokozuna, for distraction.
Right.
Hitting me with a chair and defeating me cocky and arrogant, he's defeated. It's all over with. That was a great thing for him, and that's what they were planning. Great thing for him to elevate him, and then Yokozuna did the bonsai on my ribs, and I was out. I missed a big pay-per-view, which I was going to be main event part of Thanksgiving, which I think it was, if I remember right, Survivor Series. Survivor Series is which I was going to be part of, and Undertaker took my spot. So I was at home.
Okay, right. Yeah.
I was at home doing that time, which Lex and I think Steiner's were going to be our tag team partners. I can't remember the other side. But it was going to be a big thing for Borga. But, he just didn't flow with things. Sometimes it's just hard for people to make that switch from where they're going or just to get what they want. And finally, he just kind of faded off.
Ludvig Borga was horrible.
You got to feel for Tatanka missing out on a big pay-per-view payday like that. Another guy who was pulled from that main event was Pierre Carl Ouellet, PCO. Back then he was Quebecer Pierre. Let's hear a shoot interview from him.
Just after we got the straps, the tag team championship, tag team belts, we came to TV tapings, and someone came up to us. Can't remember who it was. Hey guys, your Cadillac had 4 flat tires. Anyways, the 4 tires, it ended up At the end, it went from being the Steiners to being Ludvig Borga. Jacques told Borga, come outside, we gotta talk. And he asked Borga, did you slice the fucking tire? And I was just beside Jacques just in case something happened. I was there outside, and Borga said, no, I didn't. So if he did, he didn't back up his
So Jacques Rougeau tells the story a little differently. I'll play that clip a little later, but in Jacques' story, it was Ludvig Borga whose tires were slashed, and the Steiners accused Jacques Rougeau of slashing the tires. But I'm going to play a little more of this PCO interview because this part gets a little interesting.
He was like a Nazi. He was like, didn't like the blacks, didn't like...
so you may not have liked French people.
Yeah, maybe so. And plus, he was a good friend of Polo.
Him being a Nazi kind of checks out. There has been some internet stories and pictures of some nefarious tattoos he might have had.
Ludvig Borga was horrible.
And here's the clip of Jacques Rougeau telling his story of the tire slashing incident with Ludvig Borga.
Creating, I don't know if you remember Ludvig Borga. Who say they tried to make him believe that I had cut his tires in the hotel that night, so he couldn't make the shot the next day, and they tried to put some heat on me with them. So those were jokes that weren't fun because we almost had a big fight, me and Ludvig Borga, in the dressing room, and over that because he was brainwashed by the Steiners. So I don't know which one it was, but I knew it came from them, and so I had to face Ludvig Borga in the backstage. Because the rumor was out he was going to beat me up that night when we got to the arena. So I came in the arena and I grabbed him before he had a chance to grab me, and I just told him in front of the boys, hey, I'd like to speak to you outside the dressing room. And all the boys knew that there was going to be a fight that night. So, and he was not a guy you wanted to fight with, and but I knew that if I confronted him, it would put him off guard. And so he looked at me. He was playing cards with the smoking guns at the time, and then he just looked at me and he looked up like he was so shocked that I asked him to walk out the dressing room. That I told him, I said, "You come out." I said, "Don't worry." I said, "We're not going to fight." And it was almost like I was trying to calm, make it. It was amazing. And anyway, I was the one that was scared like crazy, but I just didn't show it to him. And so we went outside, and I had a chance. I put in a word, and I took my chance, and I told him, I said, "Ludvig," I said, "if you want to fight, we'll fight. But I said, the one thing I want you to know, I didn't cut your tires. And I said, if you still want to fight, we'll fight. But I don't like fighting for things I didn't do." I said, "Whatever you want to do." And then he looked at me, and then he says, "Okay." He says, "I was told it was you." I said, "It wasn't me." I said, "I don't play games with stuff and personal belongings with the people. It's not my bag." I said, "Life is hard enough on the road. I don't need that." And so he says, "Okay." So we shook hands. And when we came back in the dressing rooms, it was almost like everybody was shocked. And the Steiner brothers were disappointed because I didn't get beat up by the Ludvig Borga.
Ludvig Borga was horrible.
And in the final clip I'm going to share with everybody today, this is Kevin Nash on the Click This podcast talking about Ludvig Borga.
I knew Ludvig very well. Tony was a good. I mean, I stayed at his house in Manhattan Beach. He was a different cat. I wouldn't say that he and I shared beliefs on humans. Put it this way, we were walking through Tel Aviv, and he had an SS tattoo on his calf. So, which I did not know until we were walking through Tel Aviv.
It's a fine place to discover that.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
But Ludvig Borga was horrible.
Well, there you go. I've actually kind of changed my opinion of Ludvig Borga the more this thing is played out. Anyway, let me know in your comments below. You want me to do more compilations like this on topics? I find them interesting. And let me know in the comments below, what do you guys think of Ludvig Borga? Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.